Hello, this is Ryan Fritz with Science of Cardio. I am the founder and CEO of Science of Cardio. I work on and try to help people with sustainability of exercise, and I try to use exercise science to give them the best benefit of improving their strength and cardiovascular abilities. First podcast, and I'm very excited about kind of getting this started. Today's topic is think different and train different with cardiovascular exercise. I've been running my company for about 8 years now. I've been in the personal training, fitness, strength, and conditioning world for about 15 years to 20 years with school. I have a bachelor's degree in exercise and sports science, and we want to get some good information out and have people kind of talk and discuss some of these things that are out in the fitness industry. So the first thing, getting into this thinking different about cardiovascular exercise. Traditional cardiovascular exercise is, jogging, running. That's what people think of when they do cardio. You might have a gym setting where you're doing the elliptical, maybe a rower, a step machine, step mill or stepper, maybe a climber, elliptical, an arc trainer. So we know that there are inherent benefits to this. We know that it helps with making better endurance kind of at the cellular level, the blood level. We have better blood flow and pulmonary flow. Usually we have kind of this better efficiency of lung improvement, and we also notice or have results that show cardiovascular exercises lowers resting heart rate. Also, there's a lot of sweating when you think about doing cardiovascular exercise. Sweating is a good detox. And then the biggest thing is people love the endorphins, or that runner's high that you get when you're kind of after doing some kind of hard, intense cardiovascular exercise. So the big kind of push for me is the con side of it, how I got kind of into this wanting to improve and get better with my training and teaching people, more efficient ways to do exercise. I had a gentleman who was a professional football player, and I was stretching him out, and he had told me that he had 13 knee surgeries and he didn't have a lot of range of motion. So he's kind of questioned that, and that's kind of been my driving force for the last 20 years. So with exercise, there's kind of this pro and con. So kind of the negative part of cardiovascular exercise is it is a lot of repetitions. So you have a lot of overuse and injuries related to that. I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, oh, I have tendonitis, I have bursitis, all these inflammations or joint problems. Nobody says, oh, the belly of my quadricep is really, really achy or hurts. It's always, in the joint, the elbow, the knee, the hip, the back. So these types of movements are typically done kind of high intensity, high stress. The running, the jumping, it's high intensity, so kind of sports activity is really stressful on your joints, and it causes a lot of joint pain and problems. There's, again, a lot of joint articulations or reps or movements that you do when you do kind of endurance or cardiovascular type exercise. So the example that I always use with clients and people discussing kind of the overuse or injury side of cardiovascular exercise is if you go on a bike at 60 RPMs or revolutions per minute for 20 minutes, that is 1,200 repetitions or 1,200 revolutions per minute. And that is a ton of repetitions. So I always tell people, take that into a push-up or a squat would you do 1,200 push-ups or 1,200 squats? And people look at me like, heck no, that's crazy. I don't know why anybody would do that. But there's this common thought of, well, going for a jog for 20 minutes or going for a bike ride, it's not that bad for me. All the doctors and the information that I'm gathering says that, cardiovascular exercise is good and it does, these great health things, and I'll live longer and I'll be healthier and it'll help me lose weight. And what I'm saying is there are benefits to it. There's also kind of these, stressors, and this is why people get hurt. So another example that I use is, walking a mile or jogging a mile. Usually it's about 2,000 steps. So most of my running people, they don't blink anything of a 2 mile. 2 miles kind of like a recovery run for them. So for 2 miles, you have 4,000, steps or foot contacts. In a 5 mile run, you'll have 10,000 foot contacts. So again, take that. Would you do 10,000 push-ups, 10,000 sit-ups, 10,000 squats? It's a little crazy when you think about, oh, well, yeah, like I wouldn't want to put 10,000 stresses on my lower back, but oh well, I'm gonna go run a 5K or 10K and whatever, no big deal. So food for thought, something to think about. So getting into that, we go more towards kind of the solution side of things. Well, if cardiovascular exercise has all these great benefits on the cellular level and help us, with kind of our heart and blood and oxygen flow, how can we get those good benefits without putting all that stress and aches and pains on our joints? So what I usually guide or tell people to do is, structure or have a game plan of, I'm going to do cardiovascular exercise every other day. I'm going to, rest in between days, let my body recover and heal, repair itself. Unless you're trained for a major event, I don't think we need to be going crazy, 90-minute plus type of exercise. I personally do 20 minutes of different modalities. So I kind of tell people to go vertical. So, if walking is a normal stress for you, start playing with the incline. If, running on a treadmill is a normal stress for you, play with the incline. There's a lot of different cardiovascular machines or modalities that you can adjust the incline or the intensity with. So you can play around with that. But again, more repetitions, the more stress, the more damage, the more inflammation in your joints and your cells. So also frequency and volume is a killer. So you need to be thoughtful about, well, I need to stress myself scientifically, get the best bang for my buck and time, but also not overdo it where, I'm going to have surgery because I, tore my ACL from doing a lot of practices or repetitions. So some good examples of better scientific solutions. Swimming comes to mind. Swimming is, sort of a resistance. Your body's going through this medium that creates a resistance. So it's a little bit more challenging on the muscular system. Another example would be something like a Versa climber, or it's kind of like a stationary machine that mimics rock climbing. Again, going vertical, your body's not used to doing that movement, so it's a ton of effort. It's a foreign challenge. The latest thing that I'm exploring is kind of the sauna or heat stress. Heat stress is awesome because we get these similar benefits to traditional cardio. We get the detox, we sweat, but there's no joint stress. You're not moving, so you don't have a lot of repetitions in your joint. You also have, these endorphins and hormones linked the same as you would, going out for a run or jog. There are some studies that show and kind of back that it helps with endurance. So endurance athletes are getting benefits also in addition to their training. They're getting benefits to the sauna use. Um, and then, I usually kind of biking is my go-to kind of low intensity cardiovascular exercise. So, very interesting, very cool. Play around with different modalities. When I do kind of my, you know, higher intensity cardio days, I might do them once a week, but I will do a couple minutes on the treadmill, a couple minutes on the bike, a couple minutes on the rower, a couple minutes on the arc trainer, a couple minutes on the elliptical, and I'll kind of, blast out 30 to 40 minutes. But all of those have different stressors and different challenges on your joints and your muscles and your body systems, if you will. So, recommendations. The biggest thing is I try to promote sustainability. Can you go and walk or jog a mile? If you are super sore and super achy from doing that, you might have to regress or pull back and do a little bit less. Your body should tolerate what you're doing to it. Most people go zero to a million and they say, oh, well, I'm going to go run a mile. That's what we did in school, and that's a good starting place. And then, oh, well, I'm running a mile. I'm going to go run a mile and a half, and then I'm going to build up to 2 miles. Most people jump way too high with their progressions. There's nothing wrong with running a mile and 1 step, a mile and 2 steps, or a mile and 100 meters. But take it very small, very kind of micro progressed with regards to sustainability. You want to be able to tolerate the stresses that you're putting on it. You don't want to overload your system so that it breaks or falls apart. Also, something that I do with my clients is muscle maintenance. When you're doing cardiovascular exercise, there are certain muscles involved with those motions. Most of my running clients, I will do toe exercises every time we see them. I will do some sort of trunk rotation, hip, and lots of feet challenges, exercises, strength training, resistance training, whatever you want to call it. And then some other recommendations for sustainability for cardiovascular exercise is I kind of recommend doing 1 session a week where you're doing interval training sessions. So that would be like a fast, slow, or hard, easy. It might be like 100-meter sprint and then a 100-meter walk, or it might be 30 seconds on the bike and then 30 seconds off. So you can play around with those work to rest ratios, but there should be some sort of super challenged intensity throughout your week. Usually the traditional rule was cardiovascular exercise benefits come from 70+% of your max heart rate. So I used to use max heart rate a lot, and I've gotten away from it because people don't understand the science. They don't understand the pros and cons of it, and they just say, oh, well, I'm going to go as hard as I can. Well, there's a way to train that. You can't just go, max heart rate forever. There's a reason why you slow down for a 600 meter or 1200 meter or a 3200 meter race. It's because your body can't doesn't get oxygen in, and it can't sustain that. So it has to slow down. So you should challenge that intensity and get to those intervals and get to 80, 90, close to max heart rate on a normal or regular basis. And then the other thing that I really push and promote for people is once a week you should be doing some sort of steady state, or also known as long slow distance. So this is what people think about when they think of cardiovascular. I'm going to go jog for 20 minutes, or I'm going to go bike ride for 20 minutes. Something that's kind of a moderate challenge that you can sustain for a decent amount of time, that you don't burn out, really quickly, that is tolerable. So I do practice this kind of once a week. I do interval training. So in the summertime, I'll do like hill sprints, and then I'll walk down the hill. And I'll do those, multiple repetitions for 15, 20 minutes, and it helps me sleep very easily. And then I'll also throw in kind of a steady state. So in the winter time, I'll have my stationary bike in the basement, and I'll just, plug out 20 minutes at 80 RPMs. Again, moderate challenge for a decent amount of time. Usually the recommendation's 20 to 60 minutes. So that is wrapping up our first podcast about thinking different and training different with cardiovascular exercise. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope to encourage you to come back. Our next topic is going to be similar to this. It's going to be about thinking different, training different with resistance training.